Martyrs Memorial celebrates 70 years of service. Prime Minister visits affected villages on Manam Island. And fire destroys a number of shops in Port Moresby.
This is National MTV News with Godwin Eki.
Thank you for joining us for Sunday's news. While rural churches ended their synod week ago, the United Church of Papua New Guinea's Urban Church ended its 50th Urban Synod on Friday in Port Moresby. Circuit members from Eastern Highlands, Moorabbin and NCD attended the meeting.
During the synod, the members also had their 7th biannual meeting where they discussed issues affecting the church and posting of church officials.
The synod simply, we are looking at policies and also the running of the church in this region, because this region is catering every person or every citizen who are coming from the abroad, from New Guinea towns, from the Highlands region or Papuan region. They come together here and we are looking after them, and we see how the church is going, how the gospel of Jesus is trying to reach these people, because Port Moresby, for example, is experiencing a lot of social problems. And so one of the areas, this region, in these meetings like this, we look at as to how best we can be able to tackle law and order problem to be minimized in order that people will have the freedom to move around and also the freedom to share the gospel of salvation to those who are yet to understand their own lives in this world.
The North Port Moresby Circuit raised 170,000 kina for the meeting to be held in Port Moresby. The meeting ended with the declaration of the next host. Michelle Stephen, National MTV News.
7 tons of food rations have been delivered to villages affected by the Manam volcanic eruption. The PNG Defence Force delivered 3,900 litres of drinking water, 200 bales of rice, 150 boxes of cooking oil and 208 cartons of tin fish. Meanwhile, naval vessel HMPNG-S Moresby will continue to transport relief and medical supplies provided by the Madang Provincial Administration. A team from the PNGDF Engineering Battalion in Ley is expected to travel to Manam to assess damages. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has pledged to government support to have the Manam Restoration Authority in place this month. The Prime Minister made this announcement when he visited affected Manam villages yesterday. He was received by Madang Governor Peter Yama, who accompanied him to the island. The Manam Restoration Bill was passed in Parliament, but an authority is yet to be established. Thus, the Prime Minister says further plans to relocate the islanders will be announced once a piece of land is identified. You're with National MTV News. Stay tuned for more of the day's other stories after these messages. Welcome back to National MTV News. The Central Court Circuit is set to start tomorrow at Kwikila National Courthouse in the Rigo district of Central Province. The circuit will run for 2 weeks and involves a court user forum. Criminal Court Judge Justice Panuel Mogish will be hearing an estimated 30 court matters during the circuit. The court, partly including lawyers and correctional officers, will be departing Port Moresby for Kwikila tomorrow morning. A number of departmental shops in Port Moresby went up in flames yesterday evening. Eyewitnesses said they saw sparks coming out from the power line that supply electricity into the line of shops minutes before the fire started.
The shops that went up in flames are located at Steamship's compound at Waigani, between Boroko Motors and City Pharmacy. According to eyewitnesses, the fire started around 5 and 6:30 yesterday afternoon after they saw sparks coming out from this power line. A mobile phone retail shop, a restaurant and few departmental shops were destroyed in the fire. This is the second infrastructural fire in Port Moresby in just 3 weeks. Just last month, a newly built classroom at Kilakila Secondary was torched by a student. Another fire destroyed a warehouse at 4 Mile and another at Kennedy Estate. And for the fire at Steamship's compound, though the firefighters had arrived at the scene when the initial fire started, it was too late to save the building. However, they managed to contain the fire and prevented it from spreading. Thekla Gunga, National MTV News.
The Innovative Agro Industry Limited and PBF Agro Business Limited plans to establish an egg production facility at Koitaki in the mountains of Sogeri under a joint venture arrangement. The facility will be built at a cost of 26 million kina and will be funded through a joint partnership with local financiers and equity from shareholders. It will have the capacity to produce 2.83 million eggs annually. PBF Agro-Business CEO Jerry Simon said the project is world-class and a game-changer that will strengthen the efforts of promoting food security. The project should take around 12 months to complete. National MTV News continues after break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to National MTV News. Turning overseas now, a display of ceremony and unity in Washington as friends and family celebrated the life service and impact of the late Senator John McCain. 3 former presidents were in attendance, minus current President Donald Trump, who was not invited.
Washington paid tribute and bid farewell to John McCain, an American patriot and politician. At the Washington National Cathedral, a living tableau of history, a who's who of leaders from all stripes, assembling to say goodbye to a war hero and veteran Republican senator. McCain's daughter, Megan, overcome with grief and emotion throughout the week, spoke passionately about her father with a poignant and pointed message.
We gather here to mourn the passing of American greatness. The real thing, not cheap rhetoric from men who will never come near the sacrifice he gave so willingly, nor the opportunistic appropriation of those who live lives of comfort and privilege.
Inside the soaring cathedral, it was the first of several references to President Trump and his own brand of politics, her father reviled.
The America of John McCain has no need to be made great again because America was always great.
The funeral unfolded as a parting lesson in civility from McCain himself. To eulogize him, he invited 2 men who extinguished his own dreams for the White House, George W. Bush, who won a bitter primary fight in 2000, and Barack Obama, who prevailed in 2008. Amid moments of humor,
from troublemaking plebe to presidential candidate,
praise for McCain's core beliefs.
At various points throughout his long career, John confronted policies and practices that he believed were unworthy of his country. To the face of those in authority, John McCain would insist, we are better than this. America is better than this.
But the personal tributes came with a sharp critique of today's tribal politics.
Trafficking in bombast and insult and phony controversies and manufactured outrage. It's a politics that pretends to be brave and tough, but in fact is born of fear. John called on us to be bigger than that. He called on us to be better than that.
Despite deep differences over politics and policy, and Obama said there were many with McCain, he still fostered a sense of American unity.
When all was said and done, we were on the same team. We never doubted we were on the same team.
While President Trump's name was never spoken, his absence was an unmistakable undercurrent. McCain made clear he didn't want him there. The 2 men's strained relationship goes back to the 2016 campaign, when Trump insulted McCain's military service, saying real American heroes aren't shot down. Yet several of the president's advisors were on hand, including his daughter Ivanka, son-in-law Jared Kushner, Chief of Staff John Kelly, and Defense Secretary James Mattis. The senator was sent off in scripture and song, with opera star Renee Fleming's gripping rendition of Danny Boy.
Oh, Danny Boy,
be laid to rest Sunday in a private ceremony at his alma mater, the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland.
A U.S. Catholic Church leader is asking for forgiveness for how he handled the clergy sex abuse. He is facing calls to step down after an explosive grand jury report that more than 300 priests were accused of sexually abusing more than 1,000 children since 1947.
It was another tumultuous week for a powerful and controversial figure in the nation's capital. Accusations, denials, and calls for resignations. But this palace intrigue has nothing to do with government. Still reeling from the damning grand jury report in Pennsylvania, the Catholic Church is weathering a storm of biblical proportions from within its own ranks over the handling of sex abuse. The eye of that storm here in Washington, D.C., where Cardinal Wuerl, the former Bishop of Pittsburgh and a key ally of Pope Francis, has been laying low ever since being implicated in what the Pennsylvania Attorney General called a widespread cover-up that he says reaches the Vatican.
Bishops knew about it and covered it up.
In an extraordinary letter sent to his priest this week, Wuerl asked for, quote, forgiveness for my errors in judgment, for my inadequacies, and also for your acceptance of my contrition for any suffering I have caused. Words, however, are not enough for some high-profile Catholics in D.C., who are nevertheless calling for his ouster. Among them, one of his own priests, a group of Catholic school teachers, the Attorney General of Washington, D.C., and even the president of a Catholic university.
Yes, I think Cardinal Wuerl should resign.
The Cardinal denies any wrongdoing and says that he is not resigning. In fact, he announced that he will be celebrating Mass at this Washington church on Sunday to share his thoughts on, quote, accountability and transparency that would permit the church to enter into a new era. As the embattled cardinal made his case this week for why he should stay, another bombshell. Carlo Maria Vigano, the Vatican's former ambassador to the U.S., alleged in a lengthy letter that Wuerl not only knew about the alleged abuses of his disgraced predecessor, Cardinal Theodore McCarrick, but that Pope Francis did as well, something the Pope refused to address when he was asked about it on the papal plane.
I will not say one word on this.
The church's systematic cover-up of sexual abuse of children and vulnerable adults.
Survivors imploring law enforcement to act. That's why a group of survivors holding pictures of themselves at the age they were abused stood outside the Vatican embassy in Washington to demand that the files that would prove who knew what and when be released, either voluntarily or, if necessary, by involving the Department of Justice.
And what we need most of all is a federal-level investigation. I mean, we've been asking for this. How many screaming headlines do you need year after year that they're committing child sex crimes in every city in the United States?
There is a dolphin in Japan named Honey who survived being hunted, spent years in captivity, and now Honey is being abandoned in a rundown aquarium, and the dolphin is not alone.
Alone and abandoned. Honey the dolphin swims in her tank at a deserted aquarium in Japan. With no companions, no visitors in the stands, it's a lonely existence for the bottlenose dolphin, who once lived in the open ocean. The aquarium in the city of Choshi, just east of Tokyo, shut down in January because of a lack of visitors. Since then, employees have been feeding Honey and the other animals left behind, including 40 penguins and hundreds of fish and reptiles.
I did not expect that the animals would be abandoned. However, even in February, people were able to see there were still animals in the park. So I started researching and found out that the negotiations to transfer them had not progressed.
City officials say they have not been able to contact the owners of the aquarium about what they intend to do with the animals. And as word spreads about the derelict condition, public outrage is growing.
The aquarium is an agency dealing with animals, so it's their responsibility to explain what they're going to do with Honey and the other animals.
Animal welfare activists say Honey is showing signs of stress.
I think dolphins staying like this without swimming affects their mental health badly.
Honey's fate, it seems, went from bad to worse. She was captured in an annual dolphin hunt in 2005 in the port of Taji that was featured in the film The Cove. Many dolphins are killed for their meat and some are sold to marine parks like Honey.
So many fighting.
The Japan Association of Zoos and Aquariums has since agreed to stop buying dolphins from there. Social media users are spreading Honey's story, trying to find her a new home. But until then, she continues to swim in solitude, waiting on a rescue from a species that has already let her down.
I see honey as a symbol of both the problem of having animals in captivity and the problem of what happens when they are put on display.
Now to take us to Cronkite Sports, if dressing could kill, it would be the best description for rugby fans who turned up in style to support their teams in the 2018 Rugby League competition played in Port Moresby. And after hours of waiting in line, it was the Goroka Lahanis who defeated the Enga Mioks 19 points to 6 at full time. As for the fans supporting the Goroka Lahanis, it meant double celebration.
Okay, thank you. The National Football Stadium was packed to its capacity with fans coming in from all parts of the city. The supporters outside the stadium came in their full provincial colours to cheer their teams. A fan said both teams have struggled to come this far in this competition and it will be a tough game.
So many of our Papua people are very, very proud of seeing our local teams playing in our country like this, and I think I really emphasize this in saying that it is more, more or less just like, I just feel like going back to the field again.
The police dog unit was also there to provide security. The entire area from the Boroko market to the Rita Flynn courts were packed with supporters. There were many activities including face painting and people waving their provincial flags. When asked what they had to say about their favorite team, this is what some fans said.
Mioks have been struggled really hard. Look, coming up now. Look, now you can look at some. Mugara man mere painting actual round there. You can really struggle hard. Look, I'm grand final. Now you can confident also. See the Baguantalo Mountains.
Most consist of Galanis too. So I think I'm on tight games. All the best to two team wanted.
I think we know the game. The game was tough. The Lahanis. Was that takes a humble life, so I think game will blow more.
Can't think blow me yourself. Or still Lahanis pa win Mr. Game because me also pa pressure game na Lahanis pa Mr. Game.
Rayon Lakingu, National MTV News.
And this is National MTV News. Cronkite Sports is next. Don't go away.
Cronkite Sports.
Welcome to Cronkite Sports. The Oil Search PNG Orchids did their best to prevent the Broncos' onslaught in this afternoon's match in Brisbane. The Broncos led in the first half 26 points, Orchids 4. In the second half, Orchids failed to work on their defence as the Broncos piled on the tries in the second half to end the game 48-14.
5 minutes into the first half, it was the Broncos that took hold of the ball from the Orchids. Amelia Cook scoring the first try for the Broncos.
Here they go, out wide and in the corner.
Orchids tried to maintain their defence, but it wasn't enough to hold back the Broncos as they scored their second try.
It is going to be Steph Hancock who will crash over.
Orchids working extra hard on attack managed to get the ball through Naomi Kaupa to score for the Orchids.
A nice pass going for the line and scoring, they're over.
But it wasn't long before Broncos returned the favour, with 2 tries from Chelsea Baker and 1 from Julia Robinson brought the score to Broncos 26, Orchids 4 at half-time.
And they're scoring another try. Brisbane a win.
In the second half, Broncos, sticking with their game plan, defended well to score 2 more tries in just minutes. Orchids returned the favour by scoring 2 more tries to bring their score to 14, but it wasn't enough to beat the mighty Broncos at full time. Final score, Broncos 48, All Search PNG Orchids 14.
To NRL, it's a frustrating wait for the Warriors as they continue to see where they'll finish on the NRL ladder. Among the highlights of the weekend games, the Dragons beat the Knights 24-14.
Out the back, Barnett, oh, big tackle.
Sparking a Dragons second half revival against the Knights.
What a stop from Jordan Pereira.
Kiwi-born wing Jordan Pereira credited with changing the Dragons' momentum after trailing the 11th place Knights at the half, sparking 2 sensational tries to seal just their second win in their final 7 round robin matches.
Matt Duffy pins his ears and runs all the way towards the finals.
Pereira putting the game away in the final minutes, 24-14, keeping the Dragons ahead of the Warriors on the ladder. The Roosters claim their 4th minor premiership in 6 years after thrashing the bottom-placed Eels 44-10. Blake Ferguson scoring his 100th and 101st career tries. 21-year-old sensation Latrell Mitchell celebrated a hat-trick, but he was also put on report for this tackle.
That was an awkward-looking tackle on Gutherson.
The club hoping he'll be ready for their first playoff match against the Sharks. Up on the GC, it was a sellout, with fans witnessing Jonathan Thurston's final footy match. The Titans threatened to spoil the party, but then that wouldn't be right, would it? JT starring at his own farewell.
Oh, yes! What a tackle by James. Who's that kid who made the tackle? It's Thurston. Really makes it interesting. Thurston hits Taylor this time.
Thurston's legacy includes his generosity, giving once more for teammate Gavin Cooper, the first forward in history to score a try in 9 successive matches. The Cowboys getting up for the legend in his 323rd NRL match. Thurston signing off in a typically humble way.
I'll stop taking up too much of your time. Once again, thanks to everyone for the support over the years. It's been a pleasure to play and perform in front of you. Thank you.
And with that, the curtain falls on one of the game's all-time greats. But at 35 and baby number 4 on the way, JT has a new journey on the horizon.
To tennis, they are the 2 most contrasting personalities in the tennis world, but Roger Federer showed Nick Kyrgios what it takes to be the champion. The Fed Express progressing through to the top 16 of the US Open.
Nick Kyrgios isn't usually lost for words, but Roger Federer put the upstart in his place.
Come on. Around the net post.
Federer shutting up those even muttering the word of retirement with the spectacular shot of the tournament. Kyrgios with the best seat in the house.
I was trying to tell him that the shot wasn't that good. No, it was unreal. I almost got to the point where I wanted him to start making shots like that, and I finally got it. So I was pretty happy with myself.
And it wasn't the only shot. Federer keeping up with the legs on the 23-year-old, even when it looked impossible. It was the first time the pair went head-to-head in a Grand Slam, and the Aussie was no real threat. Federer up 5-love in the second set. Cue a Kyrgios tantrum. At some stages, Kyrgios even opted to imitate Federer's serve.
He's been using my serve sometimes to great effect, which I'm very happy to see that it's a technique that works. No, I'm joking.
Jokes aside, it worked for Federer, sealing a straight sets victory in under 2 hours. And it was a routine performance for Novak Djokovic, downing Frenchman Richard Gasquet in straight sets. While the men's top seeds continue to dominate, it's a different story in the women's draw. Angelique Kerber's shock 3-set defeat now leaves none of this year's Grand Slam winners in the tournament. It's shaping up well for Maria Sharapova, though, taking down 10th seed Yelena Ostapenko to reach the final 16 for the first time in 12 years.
Cronkite Sports continues with more after these messages.
Cronkite Sports.
Welcome back to Cronkite Sports. New Zealand's team to the Underwater Hockey Championships is all set. Here are some highlights.
You don't imagine it'll be long until New Zealand's underwater hockey teams will need a bigger table.
Being able to win a World's Championship is a big dream come true. It's actually my second time winning a Worlds, and I just keep coming back for more.
It was the first time for New Zealand's men and women to win both elite titles at the World Championships. Add to that the Under-23 and Under-19 World Cups for the women, as well as every single Trans-Tasman title, and you get an appreciation of where the Kiwis sit on the world stage. And there's every reason to think more success could be lurking beneath the surface.
It's been awesome. There's a real feeling of excitement around the pool that there hasn't been for a while, which is fantastic. And I think we're going to have lots of kids and younger players just coming out of the woodwork, pushing through to train for the elite teams now.
And while that training may not be easy, the payoff appears to be worth it.
It is an amateur sport, so we're not paid to do it. So most of us work full-time jobs and or go to university at the same time. So it's a huge time commitment. But as you can imagine, we're all really competitive people, and it gives you a really big sense of achievement to be able to compete at the top level of your sport.
New Zealand are one of the only countries to have an underwater hockey school league, which will no doubt play a part in their preparations to defend their age group world titles in the UK next year.
A lot of people that have never heard of underwater hockey before, it's getting a lot more recognition, a lot more excitement about it, and a lot of the younger players that are really looking forward to pushing for their higher honours down the track as well.
And with the Trans-Tasman tournament coming to Rotorua in October, there's barely time to catch a breath. Now, unless you're viewing from an underwater platform or through some live underwater camera feed, it is quite a bizarre sport to be watching from poolside, but it does give you a greater appreciation of just how difficult this is, because these guys are popping up to the surface after often having been underwater for longer than 45 seconds at times, and we've seen how physically taxing the underwater exercise can be, and they'll only be on the surface for a few seconds before diving down and doing it all over again. And you do wonder, when it comes to this team sport, how exactly they communicate when they can't talk underwater. Well, it just comes down to knowing exactly where your teammates are at all times, whether they're above you, below you, or around you in the water. And that's something much easier said than done when your lungs are crying out for air.
And that story wraps up Cronkite Sports for tonight. Up next, with the details.
Cronkite Sports. Cronkite Sports.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
And weather forecast for the next 24 hours. Southern region, Port Moresby, Kerema and Popondetta rain showers. Thundery showers for Alatau, fine and partly cloudy for Daru. In the Momase region, Lae and Vanimo, rain showers. Madang, rain showers clearing. And Wewak, rain showers and thunderstorm. In the New Guinea island, Lorengau, rain drizzle. Kavieng, showers. Kokopo and Rabaul, rain drizzles clearing. And Buka, a shower or two. In the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, rain drizzles. Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabeg, rain showers. And forecast for small ships, there is a strong wind warning for all coastal waters of southern PNG, Indonesian border through to Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwai Island, to Kerema to Yule Island, to Hood Point to Samurai Islands, to Eastern and Western Milne Bay Islands, to Cape Vogel to Finschhafen, through VTS Dampier Strait, to CSE Islands, to Long Island, including West New Britain. Strong southeast winds at 25 to 34 knots are expected to continue for the next 24 hours, causing rough seas. Note all small craft and boats are advised to take necessary precautions before and after going out to sea. And forecast for small ships for the next 24 hours. Waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwai Island to Kerema, to Yule Island to Hood Point, waters of Samurai Island to Cape Vogel to Finchafen, waters through VTS Dampier Strait to CSE Island to Long Island, and waters of West New Britain. Seas 1.5 to 2.5 meters. Waters of Long Island to Medang to Bogia to Wewak to Aitape to Vanimo to northern PNG Indonesian border. Seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Waters of Manus and its western group of islands. Waters of New Island to East New Britain to Bougainville. Seas 0.5 to 1.5 meters. For the ocean forecast for PNG areas, coral seas, seas moderate to rough with southeast winds at 20 to 34 knots and scattered showers. Solomon seas, seas moderate to rather rough with southeast winds at 20 to 25 knots with gust and scattered showers. Bismarck seas, seas moderate to rather rough with southeast winds at 20 to 25 knots with gust, scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms. Pacific Ocean sees slight southeast to clockwise winds at 10 to 20 knots with scattered showers.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
And before we go, one of the oldest schools in the country today celebrated 70 years of service. Martyrs Memorial School was built after World War II as a living memorial of 11 missionaries who died for their faith. 8 of the missionaries were executed by members of the invading Japanese army. 2 Papua New Guinean evangelist teachers were killed in separate incidents during their work with the missionaries.
For many generations of students, the Martyrs Memorial School, as it used to be known, holds very fond memories. Soon after its establishment after World War II, Anglican missionaries brought together students from all over the country.
School is more than a school, more than a just ordinary school, ordinary secondary school, because it has a long history and it has many connections.
Looking back, it was a visionary decision and one that contributed greatly to unifying a tribally fragmented land.
I came in as a raw material, if you would, and this school built me up, gave me something that made me see my future. And this school buried so much, gave me so much, that made me to be who I am today.
Many of the students who came as boys formed lifelong friendships with those from other provinces. Every year, the number of old boys or former students dwindles as new members are added. Retired radio broadcaster Winterford Siharupa is an old boy who went on to work for the NBC radio. He says celebrating 70 years is a special achievement indeed.
At that time, it was all boys. So the feeling again, being all boys coming together is huge. It just, I can't express it. Some of us, we sang our old school song and we were in tears.
Martyrs Memorial used to be an all-boys school. It is a living memory of the Australian and Papua New Guinean Anglican missionaries who were either killed by the invading Japanese army or killed standing up for their faith.
Today we come together to give honor and glory to God for Martyrs of New Guinea.
Many of those who were killed were relatively young. They had come to the former colony before the war and refused to leave when the Japanese arrived. Many of the buildings are named after the young men and women who gave their lives. The Martyrs Memorial School became a melting pot for diverse cultures over the years. Because many of the students came from rural villages, the school tried to make transition to secondary education as smooth as possible by incorporating elements of village living into school life.
One particular thing that I think is there was a garden house, and we were put in those garden houses. Like people came from different distances. We were put together here in that garden house, so we look after the younger ones. So we were together, and so it gives that sense of looking after one another and also making sure we're safe. We get support from one another. So that was very important in those years. Today, no, that's how it used to be. And also we were encouraged to plant crops, food stuff in our own garden houses. And we were taught how to become self-reliant. Agriculture mostly been taught to us here in the school. And we were more like a self-supporting ourselves, self-reliant.
It actually makes me proud to say that some of the highly qualified Papua New Guineans came out of this place during my time. And the type of discipline that we offered was such that made young men, those days they were only men, so boys, made them become responsible citizens. And so I'm proud, I'm so proud to be part of this history, a school that has made history.
Scott Waide, National MTV News, Popondetta.
And that's the news, sports and weather for today, Sunday, the 2nd of September 2018. Get your snacks ready for 8 p.m. tonight to catch My Province, My Country, 43 years on, as we take you to the autonomous region of Bougainville. On behalf of the entire news team around the country, pleasant viewing. Good night.